Hi, it's Brian. Welcome to the awards contender, and let's get right to it. Challengers is a masterpiece. This is my no spoiler review. So to be honest, I went into this movie with very high expectations. I had heard nothing but great things the last few weeks. It's at 95% on Rotten Tomatoes. I've seen some 9s out of 10s and 10s out of 10s. And this director and this cast and that amazing trailer, I was feeling pretty good. I was like, okay, this movie will be disappointing if it's like a 7 out of 10. But you never know. It's April. I'm like, how often do we get a stone cold masterpiece of a movie in theaters in April? It doesn't happen very often. This has been a pretty incredible month for movies, I have to say. The First Omen was better than I expected. Monkey Man is really great. Civil War I thought was fantastic. And now we have Challengers, which is a totally thrilling experience. I loved every second of this thing. The screenplay, the acting, the cinematography, that banger score. Holy shit. So Luca Guadagnino, this director, has been making some amazing films. Call Me By Your Name is one of my favorites of the last decade, and then I thought Bones and All from 2022 was very underrated. He has such a unique style and approach to genres, and now with his latest film, Challengers, we have Guadagnino's approach to a sports movie. This is unlike any sports movie you've ever seen. The way this film's narrative is choreographed is so unique. From the beginning, you're like, okay, this is going to be a sports rivalry story. But after a couple scenes, you're like, oh my god, this is so much more than that. This is a very complex love story. It's a story of innocence and the loss of innocence, of regrets, of failure, of corruption. There is so much happening in this movie. It is such a complicated story in the greatest of ways that after these 2 hours and 10 minutes were over, I was like, I need to see this movie again. I feel like I might have missed a couple things along the way because not only is there a lot happening in the story, it's told over the course of 13 years. We follow these characters from like age 18 to their early 30s, and the movie bounces around in time a lot. It's not told in a linear fashion. We go back and forth all throughout the running time, but something that this movie gets right is that the audience is never confused where we are, how old the characters are. This specific structure to the screenplay makes the movie all the richer and more involving. You never know where it's going next, what you're going to learn about one of these three major characters. In a nutshell, this film tells of Tashi, played by Zendaya, who was a former tennis prodigy who is now a coach, married to a professional tennis player, Art, played by Mike Feist, and their relationship has some issues. He's not having the best season as a tennis player, and then someone from both their pasts, Patrick, played by Josh O'Connor, also is a major contender in the latest tennis championship, and the very complex history these three characters have together slowly rises to the surface and affects the people they are today. That is all I'm going to say about the story. The pleasures of this movie is in seeing this narrative unfold in a way you're not expecting. The accolades do have to begin with screenwriter Justin Kuritzky's, who just happens to be married to Celine Song, writer-director of my favorite film of 2023, Past Lives. There is something going on in this relationship. I don't know. They are so uber talented. Celine Song wrote and directed a masterpiece in Past Lives, and now her husband, Justin Kuritzky's, has written another masterpiece. There is not a wasted moment in this movie. Every single scene builds on what's come before, so by the time we get to the third act, this movie is just a thrill ride. You will have your hearts in your throat in those last 10 to 20 minutes. Holy shit. And it's not about the game, really. The tennis match. Like, that's important in this movie. but it's so much more about the characters, their needs, and desperations. This is a remarkable screenplay I do think deserves an Oscar nomination next year. And then Luca Guadagnino. As I said before, I love this director, I've adored many of his films, but even I didn't think he had a movie like Challengers in him. The way he puts this movie together from a directorial standpoint is so exciting and fresh and inventive. The way he uses the camera in this movie, in small, quiet moments, in big, thrilling tennis match moments. Luca Guadagnino, I swear, is like a kid in a candy store the way he directs Challengers. It feels in a way like a debut feature from a young, hungry director who wants to make his mark in the world of cinema. This was clearly a film only he could make, and he has done a masterful job in so many respects, including casting the right people, the perfect actors to tell this story. Watching Challengers, I could not even come up with another person who could have played any of these three roles. Like Zendaya and Mike Feist and Josh O'Connor are perfectly cast in this, and they are all up to the task of making this as good as it can possibly be. They work really well together, they work well apart. The chemistry between any two of them in a scene is off the charts. And again, the aging of these actors over the course of 13 years is so impressive. Oftentimes in a film, especially with younger actors, if they're supposed to age from like their teens to their 30s, it can be awkward. I would say at least 70 to 80% of the time, it's kind of noticeable. They do too much work with makeup, with hair and stuff. But in Challengers, you buy it. You buy Zendaya as an 18-year-old in one scene, and then Zendaya as a 31-year-old in the next scene. It is so believable, you're never taken out of the narrative. Zendaya in this movie, just frickin' wow. Let's start the Best Actress Oscar campaign right now, because I think she's that good. She has been excellent in a variety of things, Euphoria, of course, and the two Dune movies, but this, honestly, is the first time in her career where she knocked me out big time. Like, I was just so in awe of her talent in this movie. Her physical acting, her emotional acting, the way she conveys thoughts by not saying a word. There are many, many moments in Challengers where the camera is close on Zendaya, and she is not saying anything, but you know exactly what she's thinking. She plays a very complex woman in this, flawed, strong, and a little bit lost at times. You cannot take your eyes away from Zendaya in this film. She is so striking in this. I am just like over the moon with this performance. Wow. And then Mike Feist and Josh O'Connor are similarly excellent in this. I mean, their physical capabilities as tennis players is awesome to watch in every moment. But they also have quiet, memorable scenes together. I feel like the story of their friendship is what really makes this movie tick. Like, what happens to these two guys over 13 years is fascinating, and the way that friendship is wrapped up in the end. Whew. And you know, it also has to be said, these three actors are lovely to look at. Let's be honest, the camera loves these three, especially in a movie like Challengers. There is so much skin and sweats, like full-on long takes of sweat dripping down onto the lens of the camera. And it's like, whoo, I mean, like, this is pretty hot stuff, let me tell you. It's not an overly sexual movie. I mean, most everybody knows the scene where the three of them are making out, and that is one of the best scenes of the movie. But the sensuality all throughout this movie, the way the characters are pulled back to each other time and time again, Luca Guadagnino knew what he had with these three actors in this story, and he uses them to their full extent. On a technical level, this movie is a marvel. Again, the cinematography. I saw this film on an IMAX screen, and it looked gorgeous all the way through. If you can see Challengers in IMAX, go do it. Trust me. The editing is fantastic and beautiful. And that score, holy shit, the score, soundtrack to Challengers is one of my favorites in recent years. This wild, kinetic score is the perfect complement to this narrative, and all throughout the movie I'm like, who did the score to this? What genius did the score to Challengers? And then right at the beginning of the end credits it says score by Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross, and I cheered. I was like, yes, of course it's these two. They have created some of the most unique movie scores of the last 15 years, especially for David Fincher, The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. I still listen to that score to this day. The Social Network, of course, won them an Oscar. Gone Girl. I just love their work so much, and they have created a new banger of a score for Challengers. This has to get an Oscar nomination next year. I know it's only April. There are many more months left in 2024, but I'm calling it right now. One of the top 3 films of the year is going to be Challengers. I cannot imagine come December, January, having Challengers any lower than number 3 on my list. I love this movie so hard, with a passion. I cannot wait to go see it again. I don't see films in the theater more than once. Very often, I'm going to see Challengers a second time for sure. There is so much happening in this narrative, I kind of want to go back and fill in some of the blanks I might have missed the first time around, because again, the story, the characters, they're so rich with detail all the way through. It is possible to miss a few things and to once again let this incredible film wash over me. Like, I'm going back soon. If you love movies, I do think you are going to love Challengers. I don't say this very often, but this is a movie that works in every way, on every level. I would not change a thing. The screenplay, the direction, the cinematography, the editing, the score, those amazing performances. I think this movie deserves to be up for a variety of Oscar nominations next year. I loved it with a capital L. I give Challengers a very enthusiastic 10 out of 10. Thanks so much for watching and subscribing, and let me know in the comments below what you thought of Challengers, and we'll see you next time at the Awards Contender.